Hello, everybody. I'm Steve from VALHARTV, and today I'll be reviewing Black Widow. So, Black Widow is one of the movies that was pushed back a year due to the pandemic. And honestly, that kind of hurt it. The hype for this movie was there in the beginning, but after getting pushed back, I believe at least two times, and it became up to a year, it really kind of hurt the movie overall. But what I think really hurt this movie is the fact that it came after Endgame. So everything that we know that happens in Endgame, especially to Natasha, takes away from this movie. In my opinion, it really kind of is what hurt this. I think for the most part. So this movie takes place after Civil War and before Infinity War. All right, so this is an in between movie that should have come out in between those movies. And going into this movie, I thought it was going to be like more of a backstory for Natasha, like how she grew up, about the Red Room, her training, things like that. And it wasn't. So I was kind of surprised about that, but at the same time, it wasn't like the way they did her backstory actually was pretty good. So the movie opens with a brief look at Natasha's upbringing and past, which I thought was actually really good because it was dark and it was full of pain. Like they start out in Ohio, so it's a little confusing, right? Because you don't know why they're there, and like you don't find out that the little girls are Natasha and her sister until later. So I kind of was like, what's this about? But we do get to see like some really good stuff. Like this, like as they're doing this little brief recap, it shows like containers full of little girls that were being taken to be trained as widows. And we even get to see the Dracoff, who's the mastermind of this whole thing, and he's just kind of sinister, and it was kind of cool, but I will say that the Russian accents weren't very good. Overall, they weren't really good at all. So that was one thing that I did kind of also didn't like, but I thought the opening part was kind of crazy. It was good, and then it keeps going because it's we move from the opening sequence where she's a little kid, and we fast forward to her being on the run. And we get a really good chase scene. Oh, in the beginning, too, I should say, that involves cars, planes, explosions. I mean, we get it. And we even meet Alexei, who's pretending to be Natasha's father in this. They're a plant for Ohio to do something. And he's played by David Harbour, and we find out he's the Red Guardian, and he's a super soldier, basically. The plane's blocked in, and he literally lifts this container and just chucks it like it was nothing. So I was like, that's pretty cool. We're meeting like the whole group of people in the poster, like kind of right off the bat, and it keeps going, and then it fast forward to where she's on the run from after Civil War, and then it pretty much goes into another mission for her, basically, even though it's not really a mission. But this movie really was about family, which I actually liked. I thought it was kind of good, and the fact that Natasha questions what it means to be an Avenger. As things heat up, though, we do get the trademark Marvel humor in it. There was one particular gag around Black Widow's posing that they kept talking about, and it was funny at first, but then they just continuously did it throughout the whole movie, and it wasn't really funny after that. They just kept using it and using it and using it, and it stopped being funny. We also get a scene where Alexei kind of you know, says something to them and they start talking about getting their reproductive organs taken out uh, for the process of being a widow. And it was kind of cringe because I was like, what the heck? I literally was like, I laughed, but I was like, what the heck is this? And they just kind of kept going on, and Lexi was like, okay, just enough. And I was just like, what the heck was that all about? It was a cringe moment for me. It really was. So you know, as the movie progresses, we see more crazy stunts that Marvel loves to do, like things that are over the top that you're like, even a super soldier probably wouldn't survive that, or like it depends, you know what I mean? But like a regular human, I was like, no way she would have walked away from that or that or that. she would have been like. Should have been like, take me to the hospital, in a couple of scenes, and I was like, dude, it was great. Typical over the top Marvel type stuff, which is fine. It made for a fun watch. The post credit scene in this is really starting to set up things for what's to come next, and I think it's going to be for the Dark Avengers because. I can't remember the woman's name, but it's basically Elaine from Seinfeld. I call her Elaine from Seinfeld. Makes an appearance, and I believe I'd have to look it up again, but I believe she is Mistress Hydra or Lady Hydra. She's so she's recruiting people for a team, and I believe it's going to be for the Dark Avengers. So in this movie, from what I could gather, was setting up Natasha's sister, who's played by Florence Pugh as Yelena. I thought it was setting her up to take her place in the Avengers, but it doesn't look like she's going to be in the regular Avengers, at least not yet. The effects in this again were great. We get car chases, we get plane chases, we get things blowing up, cars blowing up, buildings blowing up. I mean, we get like all the over the top stunts of jumping from building piece to building piece, and it's so we get all these really good stuff from Marvel, and it all looked good. I had no issues with the way it looked. The songs, for the sound of the score wasn't bad. There was a couple of songs I was really never a fan of to begin with, but I mean, for the most part, that wasn't bad at all. The acting, again, was good for the most part. I had no issues with the acting. I thought David Harbour was actually kind of funny as the Red Guardian, because he kept asking about whether Captain Marvel, or not Captain Marvel, but Captain America, like ever talked about him, ever brought him up, because they were arch nemesis, and they were like, what are you talking about? So he's really kind of unknown outside of Russia from what this movie kind of made it out to be. So I thought that was kind of funny. Again, there was a couple of cringe dialogue moments that I just was like, what? I'm like, that's it is what it is, though. But at the same time, I was like, man, you don't even really need to have that in there. And, the acting. So I had no issues with the acting. I thought, for the most part, the humor was good. Again, there was a couple of moments where it was hit or miss. Like, overall, Black Widow feels like it's 5 years too late. This should have came out right after Civil War, but it didn't. So I think that was another thing that really hurt this movie, because going into it, you thought it was going to be her backstory, like her going from a little kid to the Red Room, and we actually see things in the Red Room like we got glimpses of in the Age of Ultron and some other, and a couple of the other movies, but it wasn't. It was basically her going on the run and trying to help her family out, her older family from Russia versus the Avengers, who are her new family. But this was still fun to watch, to be honest with you. But knowing what happened at the end of Endgame took away from the death-defying moments in this movie because you knew what was going to happen. Basically, you knew at the end of this that nothing was really going to happen to her per se. So I really think that kind of hurt this movie. It did have a good opening weekend. Like, it was like $80 million its first night, but then it quickly dropped off from what I've seen. Overall, I would give this at least a 6.5, 7 out of 10. It wasn't a bad movie. It was a fun little action movie to watch. But as far as a Marvel movie went, it was typical for the most part. And it was 5 years too late from, really my perspective. But let me know what you guys thought about the movie down below. If you guys like what I do, please hit the like button and also subscribe. Take care for now, everybody.